Should be getting started pretty soon here for those of you just tuning in to 2020 pandemic, Good Medicine Way, Native Passover service. All right, are we all set?
Oh, I'm just looking at my screen here. When I look at you guys, it looks like the door's open, or there's a really bright light coming down the
Oh, the
hallway.
big light. Yeah, it is kind of bright. There we go.
Just trying to get more light.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, it was really blinding.
Hooking up some lights here. We should be set to start shortly. Hello to all you joining out there in Facebook or YouTube land. We'll be starting the 2020 pandemic Good Medicine Way Native Passover shortly.
Okay, we're on YouTube now. There's about a few seconds lag, and I think that's true for all live streaming. It's a little behind.
All right, should we go? Should we go ahead and start?
Is
Got
everyone
thumbs up?
ready? So, yeah.
I think so.
All right, there we go. All right, we are now starting the 2020 pandemic Good Medicine Way Native Passover Seder. Very glad you joined us. Blessed are you, Creator, who has caused us to arrive this place on this day and time. Thank you for sending your Son. Creator sets free, who is the light of the world.
Okay, and do the cedar smudge. I mean the sage smudge. Now we'll do start with a sage smudge. For purification.
And setting the whole evening aside to Creator, that He would aid us in our remembrance of all that the Native people have been through and how we are working and praying for His deliverance.
Casey, do you want to say an opening prayer for us?
Yes, let's do. Father, we come together during this time of the pandemic and still ministering as much as we can virtually. We thank you for the technology that's available to us and those that are doing that for us here. Look forward to this Seder meal in a contextual way. We thank you for the leadership that have put this together. We thank you for the songs that different ones have made that we are singing. I pray that you just be with us during this time here as we remember during this Holy Week that we, although not being able to gather together, the church is the people, it's not a building. So wherever we are the church. Remembering that in a good way. We ask in Jesus' name, amen.
We get a little pinch of tobacco.
Amen.
Hold it at a sage sword for a second. All right, we're going to do our opening song now, which is the Ganaronkwa song, also known as Loving Medicine, or Jesus is Good Medicine also. That's what we're going to do. Here we go. Yes, so
first cup we're gonna pour tonight.
So if you're following along at home, now you would ladle yourself out the first cup, which is the cup of sanctification.
This cup is, as we said, about sanctification, similar to burning the sage, just purifying ourselves and preparing ourselves to enter in a good way to remembering all these, events, many of which are unpleasant, but we know Creator is lovingly with natives and helping them to follow Him. And so now we drink the first cup of sanctification. Now we have fry bread. When the Jews do Passover, they have the matzah bread. It was bread that they didn't have time to let rise. Just they had to make it quickly and get out of Egypt. The fry bread is bread the natives figured out how to make just from whatever the U.S. government commodities were giving them, which was also just, well, the Jews called it the poor bread we ate in the wilderness. So we're going to take.
So in the same way that the unleavened matzah had its origins in a time of affliction for the Jewish people, in the same way, fry bread has its origins in a time of affliction for Native people. But in the same way that over the years that matzah bread has been redeemed to become a cultural symbol of the Jewish people, in a lot of ways, fry bread has also been redeemed to become a cultural symbol of Native people.
We have 3 pieces here of fry bread. We're going to take the middle piece, break it in half. And wrap it cloth and hide that half away for later. So you can do that now if you want.
So the 3 pieces of bread represent Father Sky, the people, and Mother Earth. And breaking the middle piece of bread and hiding some of that away signifies how, as a people overall on the planet, that we've left the beautiful way, the good way, and that we will have to seek that out and find it to return to a place of balance.
Since I'm the youngest one in our room tonight, I'm going to read the 4 questions. Why do we treat the fry bread special tonight? Would you like to try to answer that?
Oh, we're gonna do it that way? Okay. So normally, like, fry bread is something that lots of Native folks and other folks eat as a normal part of their diet and their day. But tonight in our ceremony, we treat the fry bread special because we recognize its origins and the cultural significance that has for Native people.
Why do we have to eat green chili directly tonight?
So green chili is very spicy. Some people like that, some people don't. But even if you like it, you recognize the burning sensation, and sometimes it can be too much to bear. And so when we eat the green chili tonight, it reminds us of the affliction that people went through in the past and the trials that they suffered. And so that helps us to feeling that physical burning pain of the green chili helps us to empathize with the suffering that people went through.
And why do we eat blue mush by itself tonight?
So normally blue mush is eaten with a meal. We're going to eat it just by itself on some fry bread, and the blue mush in this ceremony just represents cultural heritage of Native peoples, and so that's how we use it as an element in the ceremony.
And why do we all gather together to share a meal tonight?
Because remembrances are important, and as a fellowship in Good Medicine Way, we're trying to build a new liturgy to think about how would following the teachings of Jesus had grown up among Native communities without the oppressive influence and assimilation of European cultures. So if Native communities had Jesus' teachings firsthand and their own cultural heritage and beliefs and emphasis and understanding of the world, how would following the teachings of Jesus have grown up through that? So we gather together to consider those kinds of things and to remember the history of the Native people.
All right, for the blue mush. Everyone can tear a piece of their fry bread and use it to scoop up some blue mush. All hand, and you can pull it off with any piece. Let me hand this to Brian over here. All right, now we're going to eat this together. The blue mush represents our heritage and how our trials, challenges, and suffering can be redeemed to build our character into something stronger. Now everyone can ladle out the cup, the second cup of water, the cup of remembrance, but don't drink it just yet. We'll tell you when to drink it in a minute. As far as remembrances, now we can share stories of removals, relocations, forced assimilation, and other oppression of Native peoples. If anyone had any of those they wanted to bring up now.
Is Preston available, or has he been like technical difficulty out of the loop?
No, he's there. You're on, Preston.
Uh-oh. Can't hear your audio, Casey.
Got to be unmuted.
Oh, might be us.
Preston's muted.
Oh, there it was.
Okay, I think somebody's there.
He's not ready. I'm ready to go.
Oh,
Go ahead, Casey.
I was trying to figure out where I had to step out of the room real quick.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
All right.
The oppression of the Potawatomis from Michigan is something I want to speak to. Back in 1830s, there was the ceding of the land. Little by little, the land in Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio was being taken by the white settlers and the government, and the natives that were there were not moving west. So in 1838, the government sent soldiers to round up the natives in Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio, and they started at Twin Lakes. And it was over 500 of them that were rounded up. And from there, they were forced marched by 100 soldiers out to Kansas. Their journey was called the Trail of Death. Trying to see how many that died along the way. 28 of them were children. 200 died along the way. And they were marched over dry land, 650 miles. They went and made their way across Illinois, Missouri, and Kansas, and they settled in what is now called Owasawatami, Kansas. And today there are now 2 tribes of Potawatomi in Kansas and in Oklahoma. But from that time, the Potawatomi scattered. Rather than being captured and forced marched, many of the natives hid out in the woods, or they went to other communities like in Wisconsin or in Upper Michigan. They hid out, and after the removal was over, they started new communities. And now today, from what used to be a large group of one Potawatomi with really no real headquarters at the time, now there are 9 distinct federally recognized Potawatomi groups, and they're flourishing today. But it was a tragic time for them to be forcefully rounded up at gunpoint and moved from their homeland. In the wake of their moving, the soldiers burned all of their houses and fields and all the buildings so they would have nothing to return to. So that's just a little bit of a story from the Potawatomis in Michigan. Preston, you finish up?
My people have been in a victim of what we call the long walk. With that being said, we had to go from went in about the end of Arizona, on the east end of Arizona, all the way. Some people came from that side all the way up to the other side of the Mexico state. And they rounded these people up from children all the way to elders. And many people have died along the way. And while they were doing this, they burnt a lot of these people's crops because they did not want these people to be living. They didn't want Navajo people to have anything to go back to or any recollections of them wanting or needing something for them. They were held captive at what is now called Fort Sumner, allowing them to have a certain amount of food, but then they weren't enough to allow them to have to eat. And some of them would starve to death there in the camp. So a lot more. After a while, they decided to come to an agreement, have a treaty, and allow the Navajos to go back to their land and be able to be one of the very few natives to return to their original lands. And we remember this as a way to not to give ourselves anger, but give ourselves the moment of grief, but also to allow ourselves to have a little bit of reflection of how we are related to the Jewish people too, of having to go from wandering in the forest or wandering in the desert, all the way to having lack of food or having everything taken away from us.
Thank you for those stories. We're gonna do a song now, a song of remembrance and deliverance. This is a song we've adapted a Bill Miller song called Praises. And
You can do it softly if you want. So when Bill Miller wrote this song, a lot of times his songs don't seem to be related to what he says they're related to, because he really thinks in a way of thinking about how everything is related together and how everything is connected together. So when he wrote a song of remembrance, it really came out as being a song of praise to Creator and recognizing how Creator intended things to be. And so in our remembrances of the things that have gone wrong, we also carry with that the knowledge of how things should be, so that we're not stuck in those remembrances of oppression and sorrow, but we can move on from there and to get back to a good way of being. I praise you for the rivers, the mountains, and the streams. I praise you for the eagles, the visions, and the dreams. I praise all your creation, the mountains and the streams. I praise you for the eagles, the visions, and the dreams. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Praise you for my people, the mountains and the streams. I praise you for the eagle, the visions and the dreams. We praise you, all your children, the mountains and the streams. I praise you for the eagle, the visions and the dreams. The visions and the dreams. The visions and the dreams. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
All right, now we're gonna take that second cup we poured, and you can use, like, if you have a paper napkin or just a place, what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove cups of sorrow, or drops, sorry, of sorrow out. And later, if you have like a paper napkin you're putting all your drops on, you can take that out and bury it in Mother Earth and let her deal with it as she will, transforming it into something good. But
Or you could dip them into another cup and then just pour it out on the earth.
so we're going to honor the memory of those who have suffered. About 10 drops we're going to remove. And if you all in your rooms there think of another one you want to share, that's fine as well. We're going to go ahead and do our list first. Is that right? Unless
Well,
you want to
let's
bring them up.
do the Potawatomi March of Death and the Navajo Long Walk, and then we can do the other one.
All right. So to take your finger into the water and remove that one drop of the Potawatomi March of Death, and another drop we're removing the Long Walk of the Navajos. Another one is smallpox blankets. Another one for Wounded Knee. Standing Rock. Boarding schools. Missing and murdered Indigenous women. Burning of crops, livestock decimation of buffalo. The bombing of villagers, World War I, Alaska. Broken treaties. Forced dependence and removal of self-determination. And corrupted missionaries. So later after the meal, you can take this, bury it in the earth. Now that we've removed those drops, we can drink that second cup of remembrance together. Okay, each person can take a pinch of their corn pollen or cornmeal, whatever you have, whatever sacred element you're using, and scatter it to the 4 directions while praying silently. For those on your heart at this point, Ryan's going to play flute music. Flute music. Now, each person will take a piece of the fry bread and put some of the green chili and the fruit concoction on it, and then you can eat that.
So the green chili again reminds us of the bitterness of the oppressions that happened and the forced assimilations and all the things that we've been talking about. And then eating it with the fruit reminds us that even in the midst of suffering, that joy can be found, and that we can still hold on to our heritage even as it's trying to be ripped away from us, and that there's always a glimmer of hope for the future. So even in the midst of suffering, there can be hope and joy to be found.
Right, you can eat that now. All right. The middle bread. Well, in a Passover Seder all over the world last week, they have 3 pieces of matzah. What Jewish followers of Jesus find as far as symbolism in that is the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Because the second piece, the Son, is taken out. Matzah bread has stripes and bruises on it. The book of Isaiah tells us that by his stripes we were healed, and he was bruised for our transgressions. So you take the second piece out, it's broken. His body was broken when he was on the cross. It's wrapped in a burial cloth and hidden away for a time. For 3 days he was in the tomb. So Brian earlier explained the symbolism of our second piece. Was there anything else you wanted to? Any symbolism in the food?
So after your meal, you want to seek out that piece of bread that you hid away, and ideally, if you have a young person in your home that you're doing this with, that the youngest person would find the bread, because that the piece of bread represents like redemption and joy and hope for the future. And so having someone of the younger generation find it symbolizes how we're trying to instill our heritage that has been lost back to the new generations, so that we can build our communities back up to what they should be. And for all of us, seeking out that lost piece of bread symbolizes our intention to walk a beautiful path and to walk in a good way. So when you find that piece of bread that was lost, and then you have that after the meal. So it's the last thing that you taste for the day. And when you do that, you remember your commitment to walk in a good way and on a beautiful path, and to pass on your knowledge to the future generations.
Right. Now we're gonna smudge with some cedar. Pray that God would help us to protect our heritage and that we protect those who are most vulnerable in our society. And now we're going to ladle the third cup of water. And in typical Jewish Passover Seders, they set a place setting for the prophet Elijah, who's the forerunner of the Messiah. And at one point in the Seder, they open the door to see if the prophet Elijah is standing there. What we've done in this native Passover Seder is to have a red dress here on this chair. So we set a place for the murdered and missing Indigenous women, which is a huge tragic situation in the Native community. And we want to commemorate all of these missing women. We want to ask Creator to give us wisdom, lawmakers wisdom to make stiffer fines to deter this. And pardon?
I think Heather.
Yes, Heather is going to talk about that at this point.
Yeah. So it was the the missing and murdered Indigenous women. It's definitely something that's been around for a long time, but just recently that's when it got media attention. So it's just been interesting to hear and see like what all these other people are thinking and what they're trying to do. And being at one of their events too for to support the people who have gone through that and to support the people who have lost someone. It's very tragic and it's very emotional. And what one of the campuses did was donate one pair of earring, and it's only one pair because the other one's gone. And then you also symbolize the women with a red dress too. So, and just to say that they're here and they were here and their existence mattered, and they're not going to be forgotten, and to show that the solidarity of what we want as Native people, just to be safe in our own environment. And I have my red dress here. Yeah, so it's just been one of the things that we see here on this earth that needs to be redeemed, and one thing that really needs to be still talked about and addressed with everything that's been going on. And yeah, I'm just in with this pandemic too. I feel like the Indigenous women's safety is pretty like they be aware and high and be aware of everything that's going on. So yeah, for me personally, I think it would be good to pray for them and all the people who are in the domestic violence situation too, just because everything is everyone's home, everyone's in closed doors, and it's been weeks. So yeah, and just want to honor to that as well, and as well as the women whose lives mattered and whose lives that were lost, and that they still matter, and they always matter to the Creator and to Creator sets free, who is Jesus.
So as we drink the third cup, we're asking Creator to help us commit to living in solidarity with all our relations and work to create a society where no one is seen as a disposable commodity. Now we can drink.
Yeah. Now we're just going to take a moment. If you had a personal experience with murdered and missing Indigenous women or other forms of oppression of that nature, we're just going to have a moment just to remember them in our hearts while I play a little bit.
I'm going to ladle out the fourth cup now, the cup of hope. All right, we can drink this cup of hope together. That's what we want and need at this point. Then we'll sing a song. Tell them about this song. Just do it.
We're going to sing the song Fly. It's a good song of hope. Heather and Preston, right? It was in Alaska where you guys heard this song, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So they learned this song from some Native folks up in Alaska, and they brought it back to our fellowship, and yeah, it's a good song. So here we go. Yeah, softly. Child of the King, we are one tribe, we are the remnant. And when the eagles sing, Lord of the earth, bring the rain, bring the harvest. The season has come to raise the tide in your honor. Word of life, we praise you, we bless your name, for it is holy. From the hills, Yahweh, we will sing, return to glory, and we'll fly with you. Lord, we are wings will fly with you. Up where the eagles sing, and when the eagles sing, holy is the Lamb and the King of Kings. Holy is the Lamb and the King of Kings. Holy is the Lamb and the King of Kings. Holy is the Lamb. Up where the eagles sing,
Sort a little bit more tobacco. Underscore our commitment.
I can't really hear you, Leah.
You're going to sing We Are One to close out the Seder today. It's a song of commitment.
So as we sing We Are One, we want to remember that we are one people under God, and that He has called us all to be His children, and that we are going to commit to live as His children in our world, and to be a light in the world, and specifically for us, that we're going to recognize that Native traditional wisdom and heritage has a lot of insight to offer in understanding the ways of Creator, and that we are also committed to seeking those out and learning about those as well. Your way, yo, God, your way. 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 Your way, yo, God, your way.
All right. Well, thank you for coming to the Good Medicine Way 2020 Pandemic Native Passover. A memorable one to be sure. Hope to see you next week, same time for our regular Good Medicine Way
All right.
service.
So now you should go eat your meal and find the hidden away Nijoni and walk in a good way.